Live with CDP Sports Talk, a weekly sports and entertainment podcast sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet. Live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and LinkedIn. And on audio via Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Anchor FM, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Radio Public, and TuneIn. Now, here's your host, Chris Palme.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Season 13, Episode 51, overall 7-11 of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, brought to you by our friends at Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership, located at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out their website, barrycullen.com, for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles, along with their great selection of all-electric vehicles and Cadillac vehicles as well. You can call the dealership at 519-824-0210. Tell them Chris Palme sent you. Or you can email them at info@barrycullen.com. Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership has been family-run and operated here in the city of Guelph since 1969 and has been a proud sponsor, advertiser of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show for the past 3.5 years. And also, guys, if you're looking for an EV, an all-electric vehicle, there's no better place to check for one at Barry Cullen Chevrolet here in Guelph. I hope everyone is doing well on this Wednesday, May 20th. 2026, a lot cooler than it was the last couple days. I'm not complaining because I'm not a fan of summer heat anymore, but I'm excited to have our guest on today. This is his 5th time. He's a friend of mine. He's one of the best play-by-play announcers in the Canadian Football League. He is the co-host of the morning live show on CHCH News, and he's also the play-by-play announcer for the Hamilton Ticats of the CFL on the Ticats Audio Network, and he is a big Toronto Maple Leafs fan as well. Rick Zamperin will be our guest today, and I'm going to bring him on right now.
Wow, hold the applause.
Well, you know what? In the old days, I would have used the boo button because Toronto-Hamilton rivalry.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame you either. That would be well within your means to do so.
But hey, welcome back to the show, Rick, and it's so great to have the Canadian Football League back in training camp right now, too.
You know what? It was awesome on Monday, tuning in to CFL Plus and watching the Stampeders and the Rough Riders preseason game number 1. I know the starters or the projected starters didn't get a lot of playing time, but I was all in. Football's back. Guys were hitting each other. We had one color versus another for something that really mean anything in the grand scheme of things when it comes to wins and losses and points in the standings. But players are fighting for jobs, coaching trying to find the right mix. Canadians trying to make themselves known. Those rookie Canadians coming in to say, hey, I can play in this league. I can be, contributor in this league. It's just nice to have football back. I know you mentioned the warmer weather too. Yeah, it was extremely hot the last couple of days in Southern Ontario, but the cooler temps are here. We're going to have maybe some rain on Saturday for Tiger Cats Argos preseason game number 1 at Hamilton Stadium, which you can hear on the Ticats Audio Network. So football's back. I'm all charged up and ready to go.
Rick, I want to get your thoughts on this too, and I would like to ask a coach. Obviously, football's changed a lot. It's a lot safer for the players than it was years ago. Mm-hmm. Do you find it takes a couple games in the regular season for the tackling? Because obviously they're not doing the tackling in the training camp. Do you find it takes a couple games for the guys to get used to the physicality of the game again?
I don't know if it takes a couple of games. I think for certain players are elite tacklers, right? When they get you, you're going on the ground. I mean, and it doesn't take a teammate or two to help them do that. So if you're an elite tackler, you're going to be, getting those guys in game number 1. For some guys, especially, and I don't mean to knock them, but especially the rookies in this league, whether you're a Canadian rookie or you're an American who has some experience in the NFL or the UFO or the UFL or just the NCAA, and coming up here and, going through the rigmarole of training camp. And sometimes I'm sure they feel like a piece of meat going from one station to the next and, weigh-ins and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, when the whistle blows and you're not able to execute whatever you're asked to do, coaches are going to look at that and say, I don't know if that person is cut out to be on this team in whatever capacity that is. if it does take guys a couple of games to get used to that, then they might find themselves in the practice roster or in a backup role. The Canadian Football League, I know, is 18 games long. It is a marathon, not a sprint. And sometimes you have to be patient with those guys who can't execute what the coaching staff is asking them to do. But I understand where your point is coming from, because there's not a lot of tackling in training camp. And that's probably a plus. Not probably, it is a plus for the players. They don't want to get hurt. They want to showcase what they can do on the field. They want to prove to the coaches in the front office and whatever city they're playing in that, hey, they can be a key player on, team A, B, or C. So I'm intrigued always in the first month, and that's about 4 games or so, depending on whether you have a bye week or not, which players are executing, which phases of the game are maybe ahead of the curve. Is it the offenses coming out of the gate? Is it the defenses because the offensive timing isn't there? Is it special teams because, it's a really focused, concentrated part of a training camp practice? It'll be interesting to see how each team kind of, sees what they can do in the first couple of games and then make those tweaks, whether it's from a personnel or a scheme part of the game.
Rick, I know the CFL has been at 2 preseason games for a long time. Do you feel personally, as a broadcaster, do you feel 2 games is, in your opinion, enough for the coaching staff to evaluate players? 2 games? I'm not saying go back to 4 or 5 or 6, but 2 games, it really is not much time to assess players.
Yeah, it's not a lot, to be honest. And, as a fan, I don't want to see 1 or 2 more preseason games. If anything, you might just want to see 1. But I get it. You want to play 1 at home. You want to play 1 on the road, especially for newcomers to the league. You want to get entrenched into the whole pregame preparation. Coming out of the halftime, going into the half, all that kind of stuff matters, especially to newcomers in the league, because, they might be used to that in a college or even NFL standpoint. They know when halftime comes and how they get ready, but certain teams and certain coaches might do it a little bit differently. Also, you want to get used to your surroundings. A lot of the guys coming from the USA who've never been to Canada, this is all new to them. Not only is it a new league with new rules and an extra guy in the waggle and 1 yard off the ball, you're in a new country, you're in a new city, of a bunch of new teammates that you're trying to get ingrained with, and a new coaching staff, and trying to understand all this terminology. There's a lot to throw at these players, and to have just 2 games is not a lot for them, because they might in that 2 games get 3 or 4 or 5 or maybe even less plays for them to say, hey, I'm here, I can make a difference. So from one aspect, for the fan aspect, I don't think they certainly don't want more exhibition or preseason games. From a player's perspective, it's not a lot of time to get ready and to showcase that you belong in this league.
What's the latest on the naming rights for Hamilton Stadium? Is there any talk of a corporate sponsor for the stadium this year?
You know what? I haven't heard. That's a great question. That's something that I haven't really been focused on the last number of weeks. I've really honed in on, what's happening on the field, but I'm certain they have a few irons in the fire. Some might be hotter than others, and who knows, they might announce something tomorrow. I don't have the inside scoop as to what the new stadium name is going to be. I'd love it to be something, because that means revenue for the Hamilton Tiger Cats, and that's never a bad thing, especially in the Canadian Football League. So your guess is as good as mine. I thought the partnership with Porter Airlines last year, on the whole documentary, the mini-series that Stephen Brunt was a huge part of and was narrated exceptionally, and some awesome highlights and behind-the-scenes stuff that I think fans really gobbled up. From the Porter Hangar, which is going to be a new entity, and I got a glimpse of it earlier on in the year at Hamilton Stadium. This is a new, cool, dynamic aspect of what I think is one of the best stadiums in the Canadian Football League from a fan perspective. Great sight lines all the way around, and this is a new part of that venue that's going to be really exciting from a fan perspective. So, as far as the naming rights go, I do not have an answer for you, but I'm eagerly anticipating what the stadium will eventually be called.
Rick, I know there's a lot of changes with the CFL, and we'll talk about those in a couple minutes. But one thing I've learned too, I was at the Rogers Center a couple weeks ago for a Blue Jays game. Obviously, the Blue Jays product's been pretty good the last couple years, but I've seen what they've done with the stadium, with the renovations, and how they're getting the younger generation to come out to games, even though they're not baseball fans. Do you feel the Hamilton Tiger Cats are doing enough with the in-game experience to get more people out to games who might not necessarily be diehard CFL fans.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, a lot of the Canadian Football League teams are in the same boat. There's a big pie in terms of sports coverage or a sports appetite, if you will, from, the general fan out there. And you're going to spend a lot of your attention to maybe your favorite team. Let's say maybe it's a hockey team, maybe it's the Montreal Canadiens, and you're a diehard Habs fan, but you're also a football fan and you're a baseball fan and you love basketball. You love a lot of different sports, and that pie gets sliced up into different pieces or different size slices in terms of your fandom or your fandomonia. From a Ticats point of view, and again, I'm in the broadcast booth. I don't get to see everything from a fan perspective in terms of the entertainment value, but every once in a while, I'll glance at the video board, or I'll see some of the activations on the field, or maybe a unique halftime show that has come to town. I know their pregame concert series has been a big hit, so that's a unique plus. I don't know if many of the other venues are doing that on a week-to-week basis, and that's a heavy lift for Canadian Football League team that's in the business of football, but is kind of leveled up in terms of the entertainment value to bring in these musical acts to entertain the crowd before the game or at halftime or whatever the case may be. They have activations after the final whistle sounds with families on the field or meet and greets. There's a family zone at Hamilton Stadium. So I think when you look back at the old Ivor Wynn days, there wasn't a lot of that really when I first, came to town in Hamilton in 2000, and it was a football game. And yeah, you had the cheer team and you had maybe some giveaways during the game, but that was about it. Now you have, concerts, and you have, giveaways and, meet and greets and all this merch. And it's a much different vibe. It's a much more enjoyable, I think, from a family perspective vibe. So I think the Ticats are, I was going to say, hitting a home run, scoring a touchdown with their in-game entertainment aside from what's happening on the field.
And also, it's affordable entertainment compared to the National Football League.
Oh, yeah.
If you see the ticket prices now in the NFL with these billion-dollar stadiums, I don't know how the average family of four can go to a game nowadays.
Yeah, especially with seasons tickets. Like, you're forking over thousands upon thousands of dollars, especially if you have a family of 3 or 4 or 5. That's a lot of money. And yeah, I know the NFL is on an island by itself in terms of its fandom and the amount of fans and TV revenue and all that kind of stuff. It's in a league of its own. And I'm comparing that to the NBA, MLB, NHL, like it's the NFL and then all the other ones down in the pecking order when it comes to, the fierce fandom that goes with it, the betting that goes along with it. That's a big part of it. The broadcast, billion upon billion dollar deals that they have with various networks and streaming services. It is a monster, but I think the CFL, holds its own in terms of the entertainment aside from what's happening on the field.
One thing I like about the Tiger Cats, and I'm not sure the other teams in the CFL are doing it, they're season ticket packages, but they also have a half a season ticket. If you can't go to every game, I think that's a tremendous where people can just get a half a season ticket as well with the Cats.
Yeah, and I think, I'm sure other teams, and I think I've seen it as well, even going into this season and in previous seasons, these flex packs. If you can't make 10 games, including the preseason game, 9 in the regular season, 1 in the preseason. If you can't make all those 10, maybe go to 6, maybe go to 4, whatever the case is. I think teams are getting creative in terms of what they're offering fans. And that's a good thing because maybe you're going to the cottage for the summer or you're going away and you can't commit to every home game. You can pick and choose which ones you want to go to. So that's a unique venture that's not new to sports. We've seen it in other sports leagues that, hey, pick your 5 or 10 or whatever the number is amount of games, and we'll see at the ballpark or the arena or whatever the case is.
We have a viewer watching from St. Louis, Missouri. He is a CFL fan. He's a CFL fan, a Toronto Argonaut fan. I met him on the GO train last year to Toronto, and he just wants to say 2 preseason games is a sweet spot. Any more or less, you mess with chemistry and opportunities. And he really loves the CFL and Toronto Argonaut fan as well. And that's another thing too. The CFL that has a fan base in the States as well. So it's nice to get more exposure to those fans over in the States too.
I can't tell you how many fans I've spoken to in the U.S., whether it's in Carolina or Rhode Island or Ohio or Pennsylvania, who have said to me or sent me an email or DM'd me or sent me something on social media to say, hey, just watch this CFL game. And now I'm hooked. I love it. It's the fast pace. It's the high scoring. It's, the 3 downs. It's lively. It's entertaining. The field's bigger. There's an extra guy. There's so much intrigue in terms of what's happening on the field. And then when you get hooked onto a team like this guy in St. Louis who's cheering for the Argos, like now you're in, right? Now you have skin in the game. You're cheering for a particular team, or, you know, maybe a set of favorite player or players. And that's what's fun about sports. You get hooked and then you're all in.
By the way, I couldn't believe this, Rick. Before I had you on the show today, I just thought about it. It is the 40th anniversary of the 86 Tigercats team. Are they going to be honoring that team this year at Hamilton Stadium?
I know the team's going to be honored. Yes. I can't believe it's been that long, to be honest.
40 years.
What a team that was. A team that had gone to the Grey Cup 3 consecutive years, and finally in 86 they got the job done against the team in the Edmonton Eskimos at the time were supposed to smoke Hamilton. Like Edmonton was, you know, the big cheese, if you will, and Hamilton just drove them into the ground on offense, on defense, on special teams. One of the most, and I think this is not talked about enough, one of the most impressive games, top to bottom, championship or otherwise, that a team has played, from, you know, the Ben Zambiazis of the world to Tony Champion to guys who were there, got the job done, made huge plays, and won the championship. And, you know, Al Bruno leading the way, and it was such a great story. After, you know, a couple of years of failure, they finally got the job done in a game that they weren't supposed to be in at all, and they absolutely dominated. So it was fun to watch. And fun to reminisce with the guys who were on that team. So, yeah, long story short, they will be celebrated here in 2026, 40 years later.
Hard to believe. And they broke my heart, too, as an Argonaut fan, because that was a 2-game East series, and the Argos won the first one in Hamilton easily. Yeah. And then in the second game, I would love to talk to a member from that team, because something happened in that second game where they're trailing that just changed the Tiger-Cat season and going on to beating Toronto and Edmonton for the Grey Cup.
Yeah. Les Brown is part of that team as well. I never got to play in the Grey Cup because he got hurt in the week before. And I think there was just a belief, you know, in talking to a lot of those guys over the years, there was just a belief that even after they lost that first game and they had to roar back and win, you know, against the Argos, and I think they were down like 24 points or something. I can't remember what the number was. And they came all the way back. And I think that really proved to them that, yeah, they can do it. Like, they can win this whole thing. And they ended up doing so. So it's going to be nice to see a lot of those guys come back and be celebrated. And I'm just thinking of all the names. I don't want to miss anybody. I don't know if I mentioned a few of them, but there's so many great players on that team who've gone out of the Hall of Fame or still idolized by many Ticats fans today. It's unbelievable to see that 40 years have already gone by.
Now, Rick, do you see any little similarities between that team and this team? Because obviously the Cats back in the 80s had their setbacks in 84 and 85. The Tiger-Cats last year obviously had their disappointing 3-point loss to Montreal at home. Do you see a little similarities?
Yeah and no. I think, part of me says yeah, because this team had at least a couple of years ago been knocking on the door, made the Grey Cup final a couple of times, unfortunately lost to Winnipeg those 2 times, including that one time in overtime. I think from a talent perspective, they're certainly maybe on par. I think this Ticats offense would be better than the 86 offense. But the 86 defense, I'll take the 86 defense over the current Ticats defense. And that's just because there's a couple of question marks for me in terms of this Ticats team. And probably like there was at the start of the 86 season, like, well, okay, what's going to happen with this guy or that guy? But just seeing what that team in 86 did, in particular in the Grey Cup, was so impressive. Like 9 sacks, turnovers aplenty, then the offense capitalized on those turnovers. But yeah, I think there's some similarities in terms of, I think there's untapped potential with this 2026 team. Many of the guys who were there last year and even the year before, I think they have the potential to go all the way. That might seem biased, but when I look at this roster on paper, and I know the game's not played on paper, but there's a lot of talent here on offense, on defense, on special teams. And yeah, like every team, they do have a question mark or a red flag or a what if. Like, what happens if this guy doesn't perform? What happened if this first-year player or this, new addition to the team doesn't pan out? Every team has that. But I look at, the core of this Ticats group, and I'm still impressed with the likes of Bo Levi Mitchell, with Kenny Lawler, Keandre Smith, Wynton McManus, the new addition from the Argos, who I know you're well aware of. Julian Hauser had a monster year last year. Philip Osai came out of nowhere to say, hey, yeah, I belong in this league. I can be a difference maker. I can be a disruptor. Jamal Peters, Destin Talbot, Stavros Kasantonis. You go down the roster and you're like, yeah, they have a lot of good pieces to the puzzle. Mark Leggio, like bringing in Bob Dice as special teams coordinator. There's a lot to like. Now, for me, I want to see it translated on the field. Get off to a good start with some wins early on in the season, go on a big winning streak like they did last year and the year before that, and then come playoff time, put the pedal to the metal and win the whole thing. We'll see what happens.
What are the Hamilton fans and the media's reaction to Wynton McManus coming to the Cats? Because you see him in the double blue. He's won a couple great cups there. It was sort of like Ben Zambiazzi, who came over to Toronto as an Argo fan. I'm like, This doesn't look right, seeing Ben Zambiazzi as an Argo when he was a Tiger Cat. And I just wanted to get your thoughts and how much of an impact do you think McManus can have on this defense?
Well, I'll say seeing Wynton McManus in black and gold is going to look way weirder to the Argos fan than it does to the Tiger Cats fan, because we already love the guy. This is, I think, a player that many Ticats fans secretly admired because he is so good. And I say he is so good. There's no was in that sentence. I know he's, on the wrong side of 30, but here's a guy who is still physically able to do so. And I know, the days of maybe him playing all 18 games are long gone. But at the end of the day, he has the smarts. He has the physical tools to not only go tackle to tackle, but sideline to sideline. He's still always around the ball. He makes big plays. He creates turnovers. He is an outstanding voice and leader on the defense already. I'm seeing all pluses. I loved how he played in Toronto. Loved how he played in Calgary even before that and winning the Grey Cup with the Stampeders. He's a guy that when he's on the field, you have to take note. When you're an offensive coordinator, when you're an opposing quarterback or an offensive line, where is he? Where is Wynton McManus? What is he going to do? How are we going to get around him or avoid him if we can? He's going to be a big piece to the puzzle. He's replacing a guy in Devin Veresuk who was raw but impactful last year in his rookie campaign in the Canadian Football League. He's nominee for the top rookie in the league last year. He's trying to make a name for himself in the National Football League, and you can't blame him for trying to do so. He's a young guy with a lot of untapped potential, so best of luck to him. But when McManus comes in and says, all right, I'm in the middle of this defense, let's rock and roll, let's do this. So I think the Ticats defenders on the unit right now, even the ones that were here the last couple of years, they're looking to Wynton McManus to say, all right, we're jumping on your back. Let's all do this together. It's going to be fascinating to see right out of the gate how effective this defense is with McManus in the middle.
Now, the Tiger Cats were active in free agency. What are your thoughts on bringing in Trey Ford, Curly Gittens Jr., another former Argonaut? And who I like the most is the wide receiver, special team returner who killed the Argos a number of times with returns for touchdown, Mario Alford. I think that was a great addition to your special teams too.
Well, I'll go one by one here. I mean, Trey Ford, I think, you talk about a lot of untapped potential. How high is his ceiling? And truth be told, if the Ticats had their druthers, Trey Ford would not see the field because Bo Levi Mitchell would be so explosive like he has over the last number of years. They wouldn't need Trey Ford, but they're going to need him. They're going to utilize his talents because he's an ultra athletic guy at the quarterback position who can be a difference maker, whether it's short yardage goal line situation, or the Ticats want to throw a wrench at an opposing defense with something unique or special that Trey Ford can do that Bo Levi can't do, aka with his feet. That's going to be very interesting to see how they utilize Trey Ford and how they proactively utilize Trey Ford. If he's in because, and I don't even want to mention this, that maybe another quarterback is not able to go, I think Trey Ford has enough weapons around him to be successful. So I think that was a great addition because he's a much different quarterback from Bo Levi. And he's even a much different quarterback than Jake Dolagala, our third string quarterback in Hamilton, who's a great short yardage guy. And I think still has some upside in terms of throwing the football too. That'll be a unique wrinkle in the upcoming preseason games when those two guys are on the field. Curly Gittens Jr., I've been a fan of, and in his Argos days, certainly with Edmonton, another depth guy who can make some big plays on the offensive side of the ball. A Canadian that you can deploy in a starting position if you need that roster flexibility. A guy who can be a deep threat, He can be a possession guy. He can move the sticks. He can do a lot of different things. So I think that was a great pickup in the offseason. And Mario Alford, man, I mean, this guy is just a game wrecker. He changes the fields. You're suddenly, instead of starting on your own 15-yard line, you're starting at, the opponent's 44, or he's bringing it to the house. He's a guy who can flip the field, create momentum, make a huge play, score almost at will. He's going to be fun to watch. Knock on wood, he's as explosive this year as he was last year. Looking forward to seeing him in black and gold.
Now, the Tiger Cats lost some guys in free agents. Was there one particular guy you were kind of disappointed or sad to see leave?
Probably only because he went back to the Argos and then he pooped on Hamilton and said Toronto is better than Hamilton, and that was Deshaun Amos. And I like Deshaun. He's a great player. I thought he had a good season with Hamilton last year. He was a solid contributor. Didn't lead the team in interceptions, but I thought was a guy who held his own and then some in the defensive secondary. And that's a position where, there is a question mark for the Tiger Cats. Who's going to pick up the slack where Deshaun Amos was last year? Is it going to be a Quavian White? Is another person going to, come out of the woodwork to say, hey, that's going to be my job? I thought Deshaun Amos was, a really good player for the Tiger Cats last year, especially on the defensive side of the ball, where at the start they were trying to find their footing, but it came real quick. They were the dominant force in the Canadian Football League in terms of turnovers and led the league and then some in scoring points off turnovers. So sorry to see him go, but that creates another opportunity for someone at McMaster University at training camp to jump in and say, all right, I'm taking this spot.
That should amp up the Argo-Cat rivalry this year, too.
Yeah, I should mention, too, Tim White was a spectacular performer for the Tiger Cats. Perennial 1,000-yard receiver, 4 straight seasons, a guy who was utilized in a number of different ways, whether it was at receiver, taking a handoff in the backfield via the sweep, or maybe a reverse or a double reverse, played some special teams, and just a great guy in the locker room as well. So I think he's going to be missed in Hamilton, and good luck to him in Winnipeg.
And just thoughts on Greg Bell departing to Ottawa, and will Johnny Augustine, the former Blue Bomber, take over as the number 1 back on the Cats going into the season?
Yeah, you know what? Greg Bell was a guy who, when given the opportunity, had had a handful of really outstanding games for the Tiger Cats. I thought he was above average in terms of catching the football out of the backfield. Blocking the pass rush, that's something that he's definitely going to want to work on, but, I think was improving throughout the year last year. With the Tiger Cats, I think the run game is almost secondary in terms of running the ball. Unless the coaching staff sees, like they did against the Alouettes, especially in Montreal in that first game, where it was kind of raining, and they thought, let's control the clock here with Greg Bell. He had a monster game. I think he'll do well in Ottawa. I think they're well positioned to score some points this year, especially if they utilize Greg Bell. There's a couple of running backs in Ticats training camp that I think they see an opportunity there, because I don't think Ante Milanovic-Litre is going to be the guy in terms of he's going to be your everyday running back. He's going to be your fullback. He's going to be your tight end. Johnny Augustine is a good fill-in in terms of, hey, here's a guy if, we have to take advantage of the ratio, or we have to tweak because of the ratio, or an injury-related situation. Johnny Augustine showed last year that he can carry the rock, or he can catch the ball out of the backfield. 2 guys, and I'm just want to confirm their names, Ogletree and Watts. Watts was on the practice roster last year, showcasing well at training camp. So is Ogletree, and these are 2 guys who I think they see an opportunity to come on in and try to steal that number 1 running back job. I would think that whoever doesn't get it maybe lands on the practice roster, or if they get hurt in one of the 2 preseason games, maybe the Ticats can tuck them on the injured list. So that running back position, and I mentioned, one of the defensive back positions, certainly, field corner also open. Those are probably the 3 spots I'm looking at to say, all right, who's going to step up and be that starter come game 1 on June the 4th?
Rick, is there still one area on this team that you're still not sure about heading into this 2026 season?
I would say punter, because they got a couple of global guys who they've picked up, and I think these 2 preseason games are going to be huge. And I know Steve Milton, the Ticats multi-platform columnist, spoke to one of them, McCarthy. They're both out of Australia, and they both played in the NCAA. And, they're going to not necessarily get a wake-up call in terms of, what's in store for them come the preseason games, because punting is punting. There's angle punting in the Canadian Football League, as you know. If you can get it between the numbers and the sideline and you get it deep, you're doing a great thing. You don't want to obviously outkick your coverage, but these guys are going to be put to the test, and I hope they both get an equal amount of opportunities to showcase what they can do, because punting is a big part of the Canadian Football League, as we all know. Special teams is huge. We should never discount how integral, how pivotal the punting game is. It gives you field position. It could create a turnover if it's mishandled on the other side of the field. Your special teams unit is going to have to, recover that muff punt or whatever the case is. Punting is going to be, I don't think it's a huge question mark in Hamilton. I'm very intrigued to see who steps up and how good they are compared to Nick Constantino, who I thought was a really good punter for the past couple of seasons in Hamilton, now trying to earn a spot with the Cleveland Browns in the National Football League.
Rick, overall, how do you feel about this the Hamilton Ticats 2026 draft picks, and do you feel they might have addressed needs in those draft picks?
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan Dennis being their first guy midway through the first round, I certainly don't think he's going to be a starter in game one or maybe even year one. Here's a guy who has a pretty unique resume in the NCAA, was highly recruited coming out of high school and into college. Unfortunately, the injury bug kind of bit him, but by all accounts, he's got a high ceiling. He's going to be a guy that in maybe a couple years from now, the Ticats will look at him to say, can he play left tackle? Can we move him to right tackle? Where is he best suited? And can he be, as he likes to say, a mauler, a road grader, a bulldozer who's going to block effectively well for the quarterback for the Tiger Cats, or, open up a hole or two for the run game. Overall, I thought, a solid class. They identified some needs. I think they filled in some depth gaps. I don't think any one name kind of jumps out at you to say, right, future superstar. I think they all have relatively high ceilings. It's now a matter of them whether or not they're going to hit those ceilings or not.
Rick, who have been some of the players who have stood out in training camp and in the black and gold scrimmage game from your perspective so far?
Well, by all accounts, you mean the black and gold game, Bo Levi Mitchell was on point, right? Like, he was hitting his targets. Didn't look like there was any off-season rust in Bo Levi Mitchell's arm, which is pretty, if you're a Ticats fan, you're excited about that. I don't think you're surprised by that, because last year and the year before, Bo Levi Mitchell was the East nominee for most outstanding player. And I think in both of those years, you could have made a case, and I certainly did in both years, that he should have been the MOP. Leading the league in yards or touchdowns or throwing attempts, or you name it, leading the team to a division title last year. I mean, I don't think this team could have asked anything more out of their starting quarterback. And I think he's coming into this season, again, a two-time East Division MOP nominee for the CFL's MOP award. I don't know if he's got it in himself to say, that was a slight on him, or, he should have won at least once, or maybe even both of those times. He might be using that as motivation. I haven't asked him about this, and he would probably slough it off if I did, because he's not really that kind of guy. He's a team guy. He wants to see the team win. And if he's playing well and he's hooking up with his receivers and the defense is doing their job and the special team is putting up points or creating turnovers or, stopping opposing special teams units from getting those big returns, I think he'll be all smiles. So he's the one guy who I think not only stirs the drink, but he's had a great start to training camp. I think he's mentioned this the other day, might be the healthiest or the freshest or the fastest footed that he's ever felt. And so if you're opposing teams, you're thinking that, thinking, oh my gosh, like, this guy was electric the last couple of years. He's going to be potentially even better this year. How do we stop this guy? How do we stop this team offensively? So great sign for the Tiger Cats fans to see a big old number 19 ready to go come preseason, and certainly game number 1 against Montreal in just a couple of weeks' time. It's hard to believe.
And in terms of old-time Tiger Cat quarterbacks, would you rank Bo Levi Mitchell in the top 5?
Oh, wow. The only knock against Bo as a Tiger Cat is they haven't won a championship. And you go down the list, and certainly all the guys in the top five, Danny Mac's certainly in my top five. Bernie Filoni is there. And then it starts to get, okay, who else do you put Kevin Glenn in there? Is Bo Levi in there? Is Mike Kerrigan in there? Is Chuck Ely in there? I think Bo's definitely in the top five. Where he ranks within that five, I can't put him at number one, again, because he hasn't won the whole thing. But he might be as high as 3. I might go McManus, Filoni, Bo. It's a great conversation. You can do it with every team, and you'll have a great debate as to who's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or who's even in the top 10. So yeah, great question. That's fun to think about. Would you put him in your top 5?
I absolutely would, and it's the same with Chad Kelly. If Chad Kelly can stay healthy and win a Grey Cup or two, he could be in the top 5 as well. And by the way, I've seen Chad Kelly in training camp. His mobility looks great. His arm looks great. And I think if he can stay healthy, the Argos are going to be more competitive this year. And I feel the CFL East is going to be really tough this year. I think Ottawa's going to be improved. Montreal, Hamilton, and Toronto. I think it's going to be a dogfight.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Should be a special division.
Rick, if you got 5 more minutes, I just wanted to get your thoughts on the changes coming to the CFL in 2026 and 2027. I'm kind of trying to keep an open mind to it, but I just wanted to get your perspective.
Refresh my mind. What changes are we talking about? Because there's been a lot. Are we talking moving the goalposts, or are we talking the Rouge this year?
I guess the goalposts, the end zone being shorter, the goalposts going back, the elimination of the 55-yard line, and also too, the playoff format has been changed too, and I'm kind of skeptical on that. So I just wanted to get your perspective on a lot of these changes coming to the league in the next 2 years.
Yeah. So this season, we don't have the drastic changes this year, aside from the tweaked Rouge, which we actually saw in the opening kickoff of the Stampeders Rough Riders game on Monday, where the opening kickoff went through the end zone. No one touched it. And initially it was on the scoreboard on CFL Plus, it was 1-0, but it wasn't, because not only did no one touch it, it did not stay in the field of play. It went outside of the end zone. So a single point was not awarded. The Rouge was not in effect in that case. So I like the tweak Rouge rule. I really want to see it in play, and I want to see how it, if at all, affects the outcome of the game and field position in terms of where the ball is placed and all that kind of stuff. So there's certainly a ripple effect to that. I was keeping an eye on the play clock on Monday during the Rough Rider Stamps, because it's a 35-second play clock now. Referee will spot the ball, play clock starts, as opposed to referee spots the ball, everyone kind of gets ready. Referee now blows the play in, and it's a 20-second play clock, which is still in effect the last 3 minutes of the first and the second half, which is, I think, great to see. You're not going to see any kneel downs, at least not the number of kneel downs we see in the National Football League. So the play clock, I think, is going to be a positive addition. I want to see it more or less when teams are using tempo offenses or there's no huddle offenses. Is it going to create more offensive opportunities for those teams that do so? Because there might be a little more time in terms of play calling or setup. The other change that we're going to notice, I think, at least visually on the field, is the benches are now on either side of the field, which is not a huge change for the Canadian Football League. 2027 is where it's really at in terms of the goalposts are moving right to the back of the end zone. The end zone is going from 20 to 15 yards deep. There, as you mentioned, no center line, so 10 less yards on the field. And 8 of 9 teams make the Canadian Football League playoffs. So I like the fact that the field goal posts are moving and the end zones are being, cut by 5 yards, because I'm intrigued to see if this, in fact, does create more scoring. And when I say more scoring, more touchdowns. I think the figure was 60%. That Commissioner Johnston said that we're going to see 60% more touchdowns, or 60 more touchdowns in a season. So more scoring is good. Fans love offense. Offense sells tickets. Defense wins championships. The saying still applies to this day. The cutting of the 10 yards, that 110-yard long field, to me, still to this day, was a bit of a gut punch. I liked the uniqueness of seeing that field. It was the Canadian Football League. Right? We all kind of grew up with that 110-yard long field. Thankfully, the width of the field is staying the same, which I think is really important because let's not forget, there's 12 guys on the field, not 11. And so if you made the field thinner, you're going to hamper offenses because they don't have a lot of room to throw the ball around. So I'm not enthused about losing the 10 yards or the center line. That's certainly I'm going to have to do math a little bit differently in terms of field goal kicking because the goalposts are, at the end, you're going to add in those 15 yards or whatever the case is. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this all works. And the last point I'll make about the new rules is the 8 of 9 teams getting in the playoffs, which I'm not a huge fan of. If there were 10 or even 12 teams in the CFL, okay, I'm all in on 8 of 12, or even 8 of 10 making the Grey Cup playoffs. 8 of 9 to me is a little much. And I think if you ask the players, yes, they're getting actually 4 extra playoff games in total. So if you make the playoffs, yeah, you might get an extra playoff game check, which is great for the players. I'm not going to discount that at all. But from a fan perspective, and from, I think, a player perspective, if you finish in first, now you have to play the second place team. And if you lose that game, you got to play again to get back at that team you lost to in that first round. I can't remember what they're calling it. I think another thing, too, is I think simple is better. And you look at some leagues in various sports that have not necessarily convoluted playoff structures, because the CFL playoff structure in 2027, not convoluted. But when you have to, I think what you're going to have to do from a league perspective and from a media perspective, okay, fans, this is how it works again, right? We have to consistently remind fans how this is going to work. And I think it's going to take some time for fans to get used to the fact that when do we play again? Oh, if we lose this game, we do this and that and the other thing. So it's going to take some time. I really want to see come playoff time when those teams lose and then have to play the next week, what the mentality of those teams are. Obviously, after that, it's win or you go home. Again, if you finish first and you beat that second place team, you're now 1 game away from getting into the Grey Cup. So I think the CFL is doing a number of things. They're increasing the revenue, which is great for the league because they're adding more playoff games. I think they're making it harder to get to the Grey Cup. And I think that, not necessarily to say that it's easy to get to the Grey Cup, but if you finish first, you just have to win 1 game and you're into the Grey Cup final. I think it's harder come 2027 to win the Grey Cup. You got to survive this 18-game marathon. You got to be relatively healthy, be hot at the right time, win at least a couple of playoff games to get into the big game. It's going to be a lot tougher in 2027.
Rick, I agree with you on those points. As for the CFL, I would have done what the National Lacrosse League did, unified standings, get rid of the East and West, obviously 9 teams. 7 out of the 9 teams in my setup would make the playoffs. The number 1 team would still get a bye, and then it would be 2 versus 7, 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5. That's how I would have done it, but we'll see how this works out.
I like that. And, that rewards a team for finishing first. The devil's advocate in me, and I think maybe even those in the Canadian Football League would be, all right, if you did it that way, teams at the bottom of the standings, if they start the season, 3-8 and they're struggling, they've had some injuries, are fans going to continue to support that team knowing that, they don't really have a chance to get into the playoffs? The opposite side of that argument is don't be 3-8, right? Like be 8-3 instead. But, easier said than done in a league that is, rife with parity. There's a lot of parity in the Canadian Football League. There's a lot of parity in the National Football League as well. And there's some stinkers and there's some elite teams in both leagues. But at the end of the day, you just got to win come every Thursday or Friday or Saturday or Sunday or Labor Day, Monday.
Do you feel this new setup will make the regular season a little less irrelevant?
Yeah, the 8 of 9 teams making the playoffs. Yeah, absolutely. And even from a fan perspective, like, why am I going to go to a game in July when my team is 0-4 potentially, and knowing that now they're behind the 8 ball, or your team's 0-4 or 0-6, and they still have a chance to get that number 8 seed. Like the regular season now, or come 2027, is going to be watered down because every game is not nearly the end of the world. And even though it's not at that point now, we've seen teams start 0-5, still make the playoffs, still win the Grey Cup in BC Lions case a few years ago. It can be done. But I think going into the last month, you're going to have teams that are really comfortable and they're in playoff position. And yeah, they might still be jockeying for a number 1 or a number 2 seed, which I think every fan wants to see. But I think you're going to see those 6, 7, 8, 9 teams battling it out. And you're almost going to have two factions of, okay, my teams are comfortably in the playoffs. These teams are really struggling. Do any of them even deserve to be in the playoffs? You're going to have teams that are 5-13 making the playoffs, and that'll be a tough pill to swallow. If that 5-13 team somehow catches fire in the playoffs, goes all the way, runs the table, and hoists the cup at the end. We'll see if that happens.
We nearly had that happen in the 81 Grey Cup, where Ottawa was, I think, 4-12 or 4-11, and they almost upset the Dynasty Edmonton Eskimos. So I will keep an open mind on it, Rick, but I like to see them look at changing that by 2027 or 2028, because I don't think teams should get rewarded by having bad seasons, like winning 2 or 3 games. I think being in the playoffs, you at least have to be a 500 team or better, in my opinion.
Yeah, and in saying that, listen, when the 2027 playoffs roll around and our favorite teams are within the top 8, I don't think we'll care about the playoff format. I think we'll care that our teams are in the playoffs and have a chance to win the Grey Cup. Unfortunately, the one team that doesn't make the playoffs, like, how bad was that season? My gosh.
Rick, as we wrap up the show, can you just tell our audience about the 2026 Tiger Cats Audio Network crew and what time the Audio Network will be on against Toronto this Saturday at Hamilton Stadium?
Well, I think you have some of the graphic on the backdrop here, and yeah, you see the one guy who kind of dominates is Simone Lawrence with that big smile. He's back. He is so electric, so fun to broadcast with. Bubba O'Neill, our pre-game, halftime, and post-game show host. Matt Buckner is back with half, and post-game analysis. Me and Sim in the broadcast booth. A lot of fun. Mike Daly's back. Louis Butko's back. Steve Milton is back, telling amazing stories here, there, and everywhere. It's a great collection of, number 1, fans, number 2, former players in Sim and Matt and Buck, and guys who have some amazing stories. We like to have a lot of fun. Hopefully we're going to have a lot of fun things to talk about in 2026 as the Ticats trying to end their 26-year-long Grey Cup drought. Kickoff, as we know, this Saturday at Hamilton Stadium's 4. We'll be on the air at 3 with a robust pregame show, halftime guests, post-game analysis. We'll talk to Coach Milanovic, a player of the game as well. And there's a lot of cool content on the Ticats Audio Network as well on non-game days. We have Ticats This Week, Ticats Today, Milty's, always writing up some cool stuff. We're doing some awesome videos. There's a lot of great content on the Ticats Audio Network. Fun for everyone, and great information as well. Great storytelling on the way. I don't want to spill the beans on all the new things that are coming. You'll have to log on to ticats.ca and feel the fun, hopefully, in 2026. Should be a good ride.
Rick, as we wrap up this show, this is a new segment called Ask the Host CDP a Question. Do you have a question for me to put me on the hot seat as we wrap this up?
Yeah. What if, I have a number of questions, but I'll ask this. What if Chad Kelly does not play at least half the season this year? Do the Argos have a chance at making the playoffs?
I do. I feel this team has improved the rosters through free agency, and I think the draft and Mike Miller seems to be a player's coach. All the guys I talked to really like him. The quarterback's coach since 2022, and last year they were 5-13, Rick. But a lot of the games came down to the last 2 minutes, 1 minute, and there was a lot of games they could have won. It wasn't like they were blowing out every game, and I agree with Penbull there. They could have easily won 9 or 10 games last year with a few breaks in that. I think the key for the Argos this year is keeping Chad Kelly healthy. And even if he's not at his 2023 MOP level, I do feel this team is going to be very competitive. And I do expect him to make the playoffs. As a Grey Cup contender, much too early to tell, but I do feel they are going to be a playoff contender. And I think the CFL East is going to be very strong with all four teams to this year, especially with Ottawa getting Ryan Dinwiddie, who I think is a terrific head coach as well. And obviously Montreal, they're pretty consistent. And the Tiger Cats obviously have a team built to compete for the Grey Cup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch.
Absolutely. Hey, Rick, finally, where can our audience follow you on social media, the Tiger Cats and CHCH Morning News?
Yeah, whether it's on Instagram or X, TikTok, LinkedIn, Blue Sky. I'm trying to remember all the social media apps that I'm on. At Rick Zamperin. It's simply at Rick Zamperin on all those social media platforms. I co-host Morning Live with the legendary Annette Hom, weekday mornings from 6 until 10 on CHCH TV. You can find it on Parrot TV as well if you want to stream. Ticats Audio Network, as I mentioned, we're broadcasting all the games home and away. We're going to bring you some awesome content, as I mentioned, outside of each and every game. I'm looking forward to seeing the fans in the Porter Hangar at Hamilton Stadium this year. And hopefully, just hopefully, the boys in black and gold raising that Grey Cup at the end of the year.
Hey, Rick, and hopefully we'll see you in Guelph on Friday, May 29th at 7 o'clock at Alumni Stadium with the Argos and Cats here in Guelph as well.
Yeah, we'll be there. And I know the last time that these two teams met at Alumni Stadium, the Argos rallied for a preseason win. It doesn't really matter who wins. I want to see these guys showcase their talents. They're special athletes. They're awesome guys to be around. It's been a lot of fun, catching up with some of the old faces and new faces in Ticats training camp. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they can achieve in 2026.
Well, Rick, I want to say thank you so much for coming back on today again. Continued success with the Cats and CHCH Morning News. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in Guelph in a couple weeks and hopefully a number of times in the Hamilton Stadium press box as well. I always really, even though I'm an Argos fan being media, I really appreciate the Hamilton Tiger Cats and the Canadian Football League. And thank you so much, Rick, for coming on here today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, and congrats on episode 711. That is phenomenal. Keep it going. We're looking forward to the episode 1000. Maybe I'll be back for the 1000 show.
That's my goal, and I'm just going to continue to build my brand and continue to get opportunities, and I love what I'm doing. This doesn't work when you have a passion for something.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Rick. We'll talk to you soon. All right, everyone, that wraps up season 13, episode 51, overall 711 of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, brought to you by our friends at Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership. Before we wrap up this show, guys, I did a little interview at the Paris Fairgrounds Butter Tart Festival this weekend, and I'm going to play a little interview with a local gentleman from Kitchener, Ontario. His name is Ifoma Smart. He is a founder and co-owner of Wicked Smart Hot Sauce out of Kitchener, and I'm going to play the interview right now, courtesy of my YouTube channel. I'm here live at the Butter Tart Festival at the Paris Fairgrounds here in Paris, Ontario, and I have a gentleman here from Wicked Smart. Can you just tell us your name and a little bit about yourself?
Hey, Chris, nice to meet you. My name's Ifoma Smart. I'm the owner and founder of Wicked Smart Hot Sauce.
So what's the story behind Wicked Smart Hot Sauce?
Yeah, so I started the company in December of 2020 during COVID times. We couldn't travel anywhere. We couldn't go anywhere. And I've been making hot sauce for years and years, inspired by my mom and my grandmother, based on our Trinidadian cultural heritage. My twist is very different, though. I use Trinidadian and Caribbean inspiration, but local ingredients.
Can you just tell our audience a little bit about each bottle?
Absolutely. So our most popular is a maple chipotle. It's made with maple syrup from St. Jacobs. This sauce won second place last year at the Royal Winter Fair in the hot sauce division. Next up, we've got Soca, one of the first sauces that I launched the brand with. It's a peach, lime, and habanero. Followed by that is Padna. Padna is our newest sauce. It is a tamarind hot sauce. It's going to be a little sweet, very, very tangy. Up next, we've got Kaiso. Kaiso is a mango and Trinidadian scorpion pepper. It's going to be bright, citrusy, really summery and tropical. Goes great with grilled shrimp or tacos. Over here, we've got our dill pickle hot sauce. It's a dill pickle and ghost pepper. In the Caribbean, a ghost or a spirit's called a duppy, so obviously we use dill pickle, and that's why we're crushing this. Up next, we've got our locally sourced honey infused with Carolina Reaper. It's a hot honey hot sauce that we launched in 2023. It's named after my grandmother, Daphne. And like her, this sauce is sweet and spicy. Last but definitely not least, we've got our hottest sauce, Calypso. Calypso is made with 2 kinds of peppers, Scotch bonnets and Carolina Reapers. This sauce was featured on Hot Ones Caribbean Edition Season 4. You do not want to start with this one. You want to finish here, but don't start here.
And in your opinion, what makes a really good hot sauce and yours stand out from the others?
So it boils down to really 2 things, flavor and heat. You can have a really great tasting hot sauce, but you should not compromise on the heat, or vice versa. So all our sauces are designed to taste really good, and some of them are hotter than others. That's what makes them pretty wicked.
What's one fun fact about Wicked Smart? One fun fact.
One fun fact about Wicked Smart is we started 5 years ago, and we now have 7 sauces. We extended the brand last year from sauces to snacks and spices. Over here, Chris, we have our popcorn. So we have hot sauce infused popcorn. We have our maple chipotle popcorn. We have our dill pickle popcorn, our hot honey, and this is our really popular Calypso popcorn. It's our spiciest.
And finally, where can our audience find you on social media? And do you have a website and the best way of contacting you?
Absolutely. So you can find us on Instagram at WickedSmart_hot sauce. You can find us on Facebook. Simply look up Wicked Smart Hot Sauce. And our website is www.wickedsmarthotsauce.com. Place your order online. You're not going to be disappointed.
And you will be here tomorrow for the Better Times Festival on Sunday, May 17th.
Absolutely. We've been doing this event for 5 years now. We will not miss it. We'll be here tomorrow from 11 until 4 p.m.
And what do you like about this event the most?
Community and butter tarts, of course. I wore my stretchy pants today. I'm going to have my stretchy pants tomorrow. I will definitely be going home with butter tarts tomorrow.
Same here. Thank you so much for doing this interview. Appreciate it. Continued success.
My pleasure. Thanks again, Chris. We'll see you soon.
That was Ifoma Smart, the founder and owner of Wicked Hot Sauce out of Kitchener, Ontario, at the Butter Tart Festival this past weekend in Paris, Ontario. WickedSmartHotSauce.com, and a great guy. Please support small local businesses like Wicked Smart Hot Sauce out of Kitchener, Ifoma Smart as well. I want to say thank you to Rick Zamperin, the play-by-play voice of the Hamilton Ticats and the co-host of the morning live show with Annette Hahn on CHCH News, for coming on here as well. And I have an announcement before we wrap up the show, guys. I have a cooking class to go to. My next live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, brought to you by our friends at barrycullen.com, will take place on Friday, May 22nd at 2 p.m. Eastern, with special guest Sean Belligent, the co-host of the morning show on the Woodward Sports Network in Detroit. Sean Belligent is going to come on and talk Pistons, Cavaliers with us. Where do the Pistons go from here? And also, we're going to talk about the 2026 Detroit Tigers, whether they should be buyers or sellers, and what they're going to do with Tarek Skudrow, whose contract's up at the end of the year. So if you're a fan of the Detroit Pistons, Detroit Tigers, check out Sean Belligent from Woodward Sports Network on Live with CDP Sports Entertainment Talk Show this Friday, May 22nd at 2 p.m. Eastern. And as we wrap up the show, guys, again, Live with CDP Sports Entertainment Talk Show is brought to you by our folks at Barry Cullen Chevrolet. Right now, there's an adventure starts with an EV health check package at Barry Cullen Chevrolet dealership. Each package includes a complimentary barbecue utensil, includes a 12-volt battery condition check, 70-point vehicle health check, tire rotation, underbody wash for $239.99 for cars and trucks. More details at barrycullen.com, or again, call the dealership at 519-824-0210. This offer ends on May 31st, 2026 as well. And that it wraps up today's show, guys. Again, thank you to Rick Zamperin from CHCH News and the Tiger Cats Audio Network for coming on here. And thank you to the audience for watching this show live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, X, Instagram, and also on my audio platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and Good Pods. I hope everybody has a great afternoon, and we'll see you back here on Friday, May 22nd at 2 p.m. with Sean Belligent from the Woodward Sports Network in Detroit to talk Pistons and Tigers with us as well. Again, thank you to Rick Zamperin, and we'll see you guys on Friday, May 22nd at 2 p.m. Have a great afternoon, everybody.